Welcome. I'm Roy Blitzer, and our show is Ask Dr. Business. The purpose of our time together is to give information and insight that will help make your work life better. And hopefully you'll take that information and be more satisfied and more productive on your job. Our series on jobs from home continue, and we're very lucky this evening to have two people who work at home. We have Alan Podell, who's an inventor, and Janet Silver Ghent, who is a writer and editor. Can I tell everybody that you're married together even though your names are different?
Yes.
Actually, our names are the same except when I'm working.
Oh, good. Well, let's begin by having you tell a little bit about yourselves. Alan, you go first. Where did you grow up? What did you do? And how did you get to be an inventor? A little bit of a history.
Well, I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and I always felt like my head was screwed on a little bit crooked. And even in my use of words, I knew that I just didn't see things the same way as other people. And through my life, it's been very useful to do that. I definitely see problems. I approach them from a different angle.
And you studied what in college? And
I studied physics, and then I wanted more engineering, so then I took engineering, and then I finally ended up in engineering physics at Cornell. I graduated in '60.
And before you began working at home, just give us a little brief synopsis of your professional work career.
Well, when I got out of college, I was fortunate. A friend of mine wanted to start a company. And
Boy, back then that was very inventive.
It really was. And I had an idea. I called up a fellow who was the president of a competing company, would be a competing company, but I knew he was an honest man. And I said, "This is the idea I have. Should I start a business?" And he said, "Oh my God, that's a great idea, yes." So it shows we were friends for a long time. He was a terrific guy. So anyway, we started a business. And after that, I learned that I was too ornery to work for other people. And so I've gone from starting businesses to, I worked for Hewlett-Packard, and I just didn't fit the mold.
And now you work at home.
And now I work at home again.
Now, Janet, your turn. Tell us a little bit about your background, your education, how you got to be an editor-writer that works at home.
Okay, well, I grew up in New York, and when I was in third grade, I wrote a poem that wound up in the school journal. And at the age of 8, everybody said, "Oh, you should become a writer. You should become a journalist."
I'm surprised they didn't want you to be a nurse or a teacher. That's what most women did in our generation.
Right, but I was told to become a writer. In fact,
they were very progressive, your
during
group.
a brief time when I became a teacher, my mother felt I was wasting my time. So I should be writing.
And you went to school where?
I went to Oberlin College and got a master's at University of Michigan. And what I love about journalism, and I didn't start out, it took me a long time to get going because this was the time before women were offered plum jobs. And I started out, believe it or not, as a fashion writer because that's where the opening was. But one of the things I like about journalism is that I get to ask people questions that are none of my business.
Well, I'll ask you a question if that's okay. Tell me what you like about working at home, and then we'll have Alan go next.
Well, what I like about working at home is that I enjoy cooking, and it enables me to do both. I don't have to come home and have something that's thrown together. I can put it together during the day.
Unless
myself.
It's a slow cooker that you cook all day.
That's true. That's true, too.
So you like working so you can cook at the same time.
Right.
Alan, what about you? What do you like about working at home, and how many years have you done this? I didn't even ask that.
Well, it's been many years. Actually, I retired in roughly 2003, and shortly after then, I ran into a fellow who used to work for me back in 1960, and he said, "Alan, you know, my company's doing pretty well. I'd love to have you consult for us if you want to do that." I said, "I'd only do that on condition that I not be under time pressure." I said, "If I'm really retired, I don't want to be under the gun." I said, "That's not retired."
Well, that's one advantage of working at home. You can certainly keep your own hours.
That's right. And I can sit there and daydream. The job I have is to come up with new ideas.
Well,
Couldn't ask for better.
You're an inventor, and I guess if you're At home, you may have more opportunity to be creative, would you think, than you would be at a regular office?
Yes, and sometimes at night I sit in the dark and just stare at the wall and think.
Phenomenal.
It's
phenomenal.
fun.
Well, let me see if we can get some fun with some callers. I'm here with Alan Podell and Janet Silver-Ghent talking about jobs from home. Please call. The phone number is 650-856-1491. Now, let me hear a little bit about a typical day. Janet, you go first. What is your typical day working from home?
Well, I get up in the morning, have breakfast, do the dishes, check the news, think about what I need to write, and check the news again, and then think about what I'm going to write, and then eventually I get into a flow and I lose all track of time, and I'm working, and I don't even realize I'm working.
Now, some of the writer people that we have as friends say that you need to be disciplined into a little bit of writing every day. Do you do that?
I try to, yes.
And then would you have lunch at home? Would you guys have lunch together? Would you go out together? It's not like at work where you go out with the gang and come back and have a long lunch. Would you go out for lunch or stay at home or?
Normally we have lunch together, but I have a writing group that I'm in on Wednesdays, and I have lunch with my writing group then.
And then the afternoon would be what?
Try to do a little bit of writing, a little bit of cooking. I also actually, these days I earn most of my money as an editor.
Okay.
I edit books for as a freelancer for 10 Speed Press and for independent people, and try to work on my own writing as well.
So when would you finish for the day? When would your day be over?
My day is never over.
Oh, okay. Now let's hear, Alan, what about your day? Do you get up at the same time? Do you have all your meals together?
Hardly. I get up around 6 o'clock, and the first thing I do is to clear out the dishwasher and set the table, make breakfast, and maybe pick an orange or two from the tree outside, which is really cool.
Oh, that is cool.
And then I have my customers back in the East Coast, so at 8 o'clock or so I get a phone call, and we kibitz about things. Fortunately, there's Skype and GoToMeeting.
And Zoom. Have you ever done Zoom?
No, I haven't Zoomed, no. But it's really great because we can share drawings, we can share ideas. I can literally move the mouse on their desktop so that I can point out things to them about the circuit that they're working on. It's really what is available today as tools for working at home. They simply were not available in the past.
Now tell me, do you read the paper in the morning?
Oh yes, we alternate. I read the business section, she reads the front page, and then we reverse things.
Got it.
And we swap and.
Now, what would you do for your afternoon? The same patterns?
Pretty much the same pattern. I want to mention that we have discipline around lunch.
Ah.
Okay. The first rule is if you don't know what if you don't have anything prepared, forage. Okay. Don't bother me with, she would say, don't bother me with questions, just feed yourself.
So lunch is sort of free form, like open day.
Very, very free form. But we like one another, so we like to have lunch together.
Well, I'm fascinated. Would you have a physical exercise routine? Would you meet a guy, go bike riding? I guess I'm fascinated by you guys spending a lot of, now that the smog is here and a lot of time inside.
Terrible, but I like to bike, and I have friends I bike with. We have a group called the Elder Spokesmen.
Cute.
And we bike on Thursday morning.
We have a phone call. Robert, this is Dr. Business. How can I help you? Robert, are you there?
I am.
How can I answer? Please come with your question.
My question is for either Janet or Alan. What would either of them consider to be a successful day at the office?
Okay, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up.
What would they consider
a successful day at the office?
For me, a successful day at the office would be when I am truly in the groove.
Producing the article
or maybe
the
doing an interview or editing a manuscript that's going well, or laughing
So it's still a set of an accomplishment.
Or laughing at somebody's typo.
Okay.
I recently edited a manuscript where the person meant to use the word mosquitoes, and she used misquotes.
I love it. Alan, what's a successful day for you? An idea, a generated thought?
I mean, if I've slain a dragon, that's really the best thing. You know, if you have a problem that you've been working on for a week or two, and then aha, and you satisfactorily show yourself. This is all simulations that I do, and then I send the drawings off to other people who actually build the circuits. But it feels really good when you kill one of those dragons.
You keep a notepad and other things, or it's all on your computer?
It's all on the computer. I use Dropbox. So every file that I generate on the job is in the Dropbox of the people I work for also.
Got it.
So I don't have to worry about forgetting or losing something, which sometimes I do.
Well, Robert, does that answer your question satisfactorily?
It certainly does.
While we've got you on the air, do you have another one, or should we wait for someone else to call in?
You can wait for somebody else to call in.
Well, thank you so much for participating, and best of good luck to you as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad that your day is successful. We have another caller. Rufus, this is Dr. Business. How can I help you? Rufus, are you there? You called in, so you must be nearby.
Hi, my name is Rufus.
Thank you, Rufus. What is your question, please?
My question is, how do you build a network while working from home?
I like that one as well. We're very fortunate. Okay, Alan, you go first this time.
Well, I was lucky. The network found me. You know, Glenn came to me and asked me whether I was willing to work on his project. I had a number of other people that I'd worked with in the past who were interested in my working for them, but I realized very quickly that the consulting business can eat you up. And I had to apply discipline. And no matter how seductive the project was, I just had to say, thanks, but no. And so I picked, because the job I had was so tailored to what I wanted. I could dream, invent, and get paid for it. What more could you want from life?
What about associations? Would you go to networking meetings?
now
Would you have lunches? Would you?
I love going to conferences and meeting the people there. It's very stimulating. And I try to get social contact with people who, because,
although you do have lunch together, which is interesting because many business people use lunch as a way to connect with other people.
Oh, I do have an occasional business lunch, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
always stimulating to talk with other people who are smart and interested in life. I always come back with more ideas than I went with.
now, Janet, your turn. What do you do to network to keep yourself active?
Well, to keep myself active, I do go to the JCC. In terms of networking, I don't do it per se. I'm retired from full-time work about 10 years ago, and for the most part, people find me.
So
And
you
that's been
select which projects you want to work on.
and I ignore everything that comes through on LinkedIn.
Do you ever say no to business?
Yes.
Okay. There's good business and bad business. Rufus, I'm going to ask a complimentary question like that. You both seem very graciously extroverted and really warm. And what do you do for your social needs?
Well, for one thing, I bike, and we have very
Active social life.
social contact that way. And then we're part of a book group. We sing on Monday and Tuesday evenings. We're part of another choir or two that happens a few times a year. My favorite, I love singing, and my favorite thing is to participate in a group that sings at memorial services.
Perfect.
And I just love it because I'm not the one making the music. I'm part of the music. The music is its own, it has its own life, and I'm just helping keep it alive. I love
Thank you, Rufus. It looks like our colleagues do a lot of networking, even though they work at home and spend a lot of time together. Do you have any other thing you'd like to know, or are you good?
I think that's all for today.
Well, thank you very much, and best of good luck in your career as well.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Take care. I'd like to remind everyone that I'm here with Janet Silver-Ghent and Alan Podell, a married couple who work at home. And I'd like to request any more phone calls, please. The phone number is 650-856-1491. I feel a little like the shopping network every time I do that, but that's okay. Talk a little bit about the physical structure of how you set your home up.
That's just
yes.
exactly what I was going to
Yes.
mention.
Oh, good.
Go ahead,
And
Janet.
Janet's
Okay.
turn this time.
Okay, Alan is up in what I call the airy. He's up in there. We have a loft upstairs.
So he's in the higher spot.
He's in the higher spot because he has a higher calling.
And where is your office?
It's downstairs. When we did a remodel, I created a cubicle for myself.
Clever. So
Very snug.
It's very
So-
snug, which is the way I like it.
so you each have your own equipment, your own phones. Do you each have your own printer?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
They're so cheap these days.
Well, it's not the expense. It just seems
No.
like it might be a little redundant. But I guess if you're having
You want me to
separate
schlep down the stairs to get a piece of paper and then come back upstairs again? No.
Okay, so one of the things we talked about when we prepped was the concept of different phone lines, different, and that keeps it separate.
Well, these days you can get VoIP. We have 2 lines for $3 a month.
Gee, you should be becoming a representative for that organization
Yes.
as well.
So it's really fantastic, and we use landlines, which is unlike the rest of the world. I find the cell phones are erratic.
Well, what's nice is if one person's on a landline and the other person isn't, that's a good chance you won't be disconnected. 2 cell phones, you have a high risk, I agree, for
Right.
being disconnected.
Also, I do interviews,
Ah,
and cell phones don't work really well for that. I prefer to use Skype. I did a Skype interview just the other day, and it keeps the phones out of use and it enables me to hear much better. And I can type on my computer, I can record, and I can listen all
now
at the
tell
same
me
time.
a little bit about, you mentioned Janet did that she doesn't see the people she works with, that because you work at home and you don't go in there, that you don't know what they look like.
Well, actually, I do still do a vacation relief for the place I used to work.
Got it.
So I do that. But on the whole, I've edited books for authors I've never met. I've worked with editors I've never met. And I hope I have a decent enough phone voice that it works.
Well, it must work. You're both very active. We didn't delve on this too much, but what are the disadvantages of working at home? Can you think of anything that may not be ideal for both of you in your sort of career stage?
I would like to be able to visit the company I consult for, maybe once every 2 weeks, once every month, for one day, okay? And then I'm perfectly fine working at home. Being at a distance makes it harder for them to nail you with something that has to be done right away.
The sense of urgency might be missing. That's a
It's-
very good
yes,
point.
at a distance, they can't, the rope isn't very tight at 3,000 miles.
Now, one of the things that I don't want to prime the pump, would you say that the distance of the 3 hours is a disadvantage?
Oh, yes, yes, yeah.
It's lucky they're not in China. You'd be up at, or staying up till 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
Now, Janet, what about you? What are you
Actually-
see the disadvantages of working?
Yes, if I'm working with an editor and if I'm editing a manuscript and I'm working with an editor who's above me, who's several miles away or maybe several hundred miles away, that editor may not be available to answer my question right away.
Now, that is true. You don't have that quick sense. Do
Right.
you have a lot of callbacks, et cetera? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, mostly everything I do is on the computer, and I use email a lot.
One of the things I was always fascinated by is whether I once had a colleague who was doing a customer service training, and he suggested that the person who was doing it from home get dressed in the morning, they look like they're going to work, they talking and smile. Tell us about, do you guys do this work in your pajamas? You're laughing.
Sometimes.
I usually change from my pajamas to my regular clothes around lunchtime.
Oh, my God, I love it. And they can't see. Well, what if you're Zooming? Then they have to.
Zooming or Skyping or what have you. I mean, my pajamas look perfectly fine. You know, I'm not. I don't wear. Maybe I wear a Mike's Gym sweatshirt sometimes.
Got it.
And that looks a little scuzzy, but you know. But then again, the camera is facing out the window, so most of what they see is the beautiful landscape in California, you see, and they're back east, so they're jealous of what they see in the background. They don't even notice me.
Let's say a young person, someone who's not is a seasoned point in their career, and talks to you about wanting to work at home. What would you say? What advice would you give them? You first this time, Jen.
Okay, I'd say it's a great idea for when you're between jobs.
Ah, okay.
But I think as a young person, you really do need to build up your network, and it's best to get a job. But while you're waiting to get a job, that is a good time to freelance.
Okay. Alan, what do you think?
If you've worked a lot in the industry, you have lots of contacts, and consulting isn't so much a problem because you actually have to pick and choose which things you work on, which projects you do. So it's not so bad. I did find when I was younger, and I still did find that there's a real tendency to be oversold, that you do too many projects, you end up working more hours than you would really like to work.
That's a very interesting point.
As you get older, you're much less tolerant of that than before. And besides that, if you have a family, it's tough. If you have commitments and you have a family, you have commitments and commitments and commitments, it's really tough.
But you could pick the kids up at soccer if you're there during the day.
That's right, and I definitely did that, yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about the relationship. Here you are, a married couple. It seems like you spend an infinite amount of time together, much more so than the young high-tech couple who are working separate cities, 80 hours a week, etc. Has that been helpful for you or a hindrance for you, etc.?
Well, even though we're in the same house and doing a lot of things together, our work is so separate that we're both in our own worlds a great deal of the time.
Do you have a do not disturb sign on the...
No, but it's body language. It's all body language.
I can read her body language really well. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Now talk a little bit about what you think your customers are perceiving you. Do they know that you work at home? Do they know that you
sure.
haven't got... Okay.
Oh, sure.
I asked this on the prep time. Did anyone come to visit? Do you have a public space where you could entertain people that wanted to see where you worked?
What was that, 8 years ago?
I can give you one other disadvantage.
Okay, good.
Alan is
not good that this is one, but I'm pleased.
Alan is a Mr. Fix-It. If something goes wrong in the house, if something is broken, we are there. We're not at the office. We're not 30 miles away.
And you don't have a tech guy to call when your equipment breaks down, right? He probably can fix that as well.
Right. It does actually put a strain on us that way, that we both have to be more knowledgeable in upkeep of the equipment than it would be. And we have a mixed marriage. She's an Apple person, and I'm an Android PC person, and never twain shall meet.
Interesting. That is a fascinating. And you don't use the other person's computer?
Oh, no.
Rarely.
Oh, no.
It's like using someone's toothbrush, I guess. You just never...
Right.
Talk a little bit about the whole concept of what I would call not only space, but the concept of boundaries. Are there times during the day where you don't communicate, or you can just see when she's sort of in the groove? Is that what it is, or you don't?
That's a good point. Actually, because the two of us work very independently, there's no rubbing, there's no abrasion there. But I could imagine that if you had one person needy and the other person independent, it could be very difficult working situation.
And you don't have the noise problem. What I was thinking about is if you're upstairs and she's downstairs, you don't have two worry about
We
volume.
did that on purpose. Okay,
Really?
Yes, right.
Now, the one question I'm fascinated by is whether you try as a professional business person to use your office and depreciate it as a space, or do you just keep it as a house? Because I was told it's a very high risk to depreciate your office space because you're subject to be audited by the IRS when you are constantly deducting that stuff.
Well, we did, both of our offices are only offices and nothing but offices.
Got it. So you don't have
So
that.
there isn't anything in my office that's social at all. It's all business.
Talk a little bit about what skills you think you need to work at home. Alan, you first this time. What kind of skills or traits do you need to be a person who spends their time working at home?
Janet would say the same thing. Discipline, number one.
Discipline.
Okay. You have to decide what you want to do and how much you want to get done, and there's nobody there who's going to whip you or you know.
And you have to be self-motivated.
It's
as well as
self-motivated and self-contained. You're marching to your own drummer.
which
all the
of course
time.
do you think you need to be high control? You need to be in charge type, wouldn't you think?
Oh, I'm not that kind, but not that type. But you sort of have a goal. You have your eyes set.
Goal directed.
You have a goal, but you know, if today I can't get it done, I'll do it tomorrow. But you know that you need to get it done. This
Now,
is
Janet,
I
what
know.
about you? What
Well,
skills do you think you
here
need? We
is-
have about half a minute left, so.
On my tombstone, it will say, she always made deadline.
Perfect. Well, I want to make a deadline by thanking my colleagues. I want to wish everyone, especially my delightful crew, a very happy Thanksgiving. I want to remind you that the final show on this series will be December 20th. Please tune in, and hopefully you'll enjoy your Thanksgiving and the rest of your month. Take care. See you soon, and thanks again to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ray.
you, Ray.